let's try this again. That's on me, guys. Sorry about that. How could forcing gratitude be harmful? Let me know if you can hear me now, Don. Testing. How could forcing gratitude be harmful? Back in the early 2000s, approximately 19 years ago, amongst the adults who were keen to manifest, a trend arose. It was the gratitude trend. Someone would sit comfortably with a pen and perhaps a steno pad or a journal. And in the center of the paper, sheet of paper, they would draw a lowercase g. And at the bottom of the G, they would keep the motion going and create a spiral around the G that got bigger and bigger and bigger, the way spirals often do. And the hope was that magically the power of their gratitude, spontaneous or contrived, would act like a tractor beam, pulling whatever they wanted into their lives. What could possibly go wrong with that? Like most manifesting activities, it indulged the yang tendencies, the patriarchal tendencies within the practitioner. Now, when we say yang tendencies, when we say patriarchal tendencies, we don't mean literal. We mean metaphoric. So in metaphoric patriarchy, the rule of the day is to be rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. In varying degrees, sometimes overtly, sometimes subtly, but those traits are there, they're fed, and they are encouraged. About 20 years ago was a time of difficult transition for me. I was forcefully ejected from one living situation, and I found myself on my own, which for a neurodivergent is can be very, very, very difficult. And happenstance allowed my path to cross the path of people who were really enthusiastic with self-help and manifesting and NLP and all that stuff. And I had a background in that. And at that point in my spiritual journey, I was trying to use Buddhist tantric technologies to supercharge psychic healing, NLP, self-hypnosis, manifesting, and the like. Now, I might not be the smartest cat on the street, but I do have the ability to notice the results I generate in my life and the results other people generate in their life. And I do have the ability to notice whether I like those results in my life. And I do have the ability at times to notice what other people are enjoying the results that they're generating in their life. And I tell you what I'm about to tell you, not because I'm an ideologue, not because I'm the second coming of Lao Tzu, who's never had an ugly thought. Because I've been in it. I've been in it up to my knees, and I found what works very well and what doesn't work, and what works horribly and disastrously. I would be a fool to say there are no short-term benefits from the path of yang, from the path of patriarchy. But there are no long-term benefits. And in the long term, it creates far more problems than it solves. No platonic or intimate relationship can survive one or more members indulging their yang tendencies. I'm not talking about playfully. I'm not talking about our friends who enjoy BDSM. Bless their hearts. there's consent involved, and there's agreements involved, and there are safe words. And when those safe words are ignored and consent is violated, I don't care how hip, groovy, and trendy your relationship is, it's going to be in trouble. We must exchange our rigidity for flexibility, our fear for love, our controlling, our tendencies to be controlling with the tendency to be laid back, our tendency to be cryptic with the tendency to be lucid, our tendency to be elitist with our tendency to be egalitarian, our tendency to be competitive with our tendency to be cooperative, our tendency to be cruel with our tendency to be kind. But now here's the challenge. How do we do that? How do we allow these changes to manifest without forcing them, without indulging yang? Because to use yang to generate yin makes about as much sense as making love in the name of virginity. One of the biggest problems for someone who's been involved in self-help for multiple decades is that when we spend our time and we spend our energy and we spend our mental resources choosing what we don't want to feel and choosing what we do want to feel, we are practically blind to what we are spontaneously experiencing in the moment. And even more than that, we are blind to what's behind that emotion and what's behind that emotion and what's behind that emotion. It's kind of like this. I'm not a geologist, but I've hung out with geologists, and they've told me that miners know that the minerals they are looking for are often found in veins. And they need to follow the vein of the mineral that they are mining. If they ignore the vein and just dig arbitrarily, they will be wasting their time. Similarly, when we set aside concentration and its rigidity and its controlling tendencies, and instead we practice mindfulness, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random, and we exercise the courage to be there with whatever comes up, whether that which comes up is external or internal or physical or mental or pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque. If we are not there, if we do not hold space, if we do not practice that radical vulnerability, then we are not practicing mindfulness. If you have ever read Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Old Path, White Clouds, and if you have a strong background in Buddhism or Taoism, you might find it deeply problematic. I know I did. But like a cat searching for dinner in a garbage can, there are some choice morsels, and probably my favorite in the whole tome, it's a thick book, is the dichotomy between Gautama, who was nicknamed the Buddha, and his wicked cousin Devadatta. And yes, they may have been real people, they may be purely archetypical. That's fine. I'm totally comfortable with quasi-historical figures being purely rhetorical if it serves spiritual growth. So the idea was Devadatta was all about being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And Gautama, the Buddha, was all about the opposite, about being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. If we want to grow, if we want to evolve, we have to be vulnerable to what's coming up in the present moment. Now, What do we do with that which comes up in the present moment? Well, we let go of it. I'll explain the mechanics of how to let go of it in just a couple minutes. But the basic mechanism of meditation is getting out of our own way and aligning our intention with the factory-installed hardware of our spinal cord, wherein is found the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems that allow us to notice and release whatever comes up. And it is by performing that pendulum-like dance of noticing, releasing, but doing so vulnerably and viscerally and passively and randomly, not forcing it, but allowing it. Consider, if you will, an aphorism so popular it's even wound up on t-shirts. It comes in 3 lines, perhaps 3 couplets. Whatever comes, let it come. Whatever stays, let it stay. Whatever goes, let it go. So we're not Lucy Van Pope on the Peanuts comic strip with a pencil and a clipboard saying, you come now, you stay now, you go now. No. We're being completely vulnerable to the present moment. We're not controlling it. Now, if I would be lying to you if I said that was easy. It's profoundly counterintuitive. But the controlling tendencies that are intuitive do not serve us well in the long term. Many of our survival drives work best in the short term. If we use them in the long term, they bite us in the ass, and not in the fun, tingly way. I look forward to giving you the specific meditation instructions, then meditating with you after about, 30, 40 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. I have spent the majority of my life full-time studying, practicing, and then reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of Taoism and Buddhism, so that I can play the Yoda to your Luke Skywalker and help you to quickly and easily become the person that your dog already thinks you are. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. We don't need prayers. We don't need recitations. We don't need chants. However, I've found that most people I encounter can be compared, their meditation is like a sprint. And they feel more comfortable if there's a starter's gun in the beginning and a finish line at the end. Therefore, I like to begin and end each meditation with a short chant of love. Now, this is not a prayer to a real or imagined entity. Doing so makes us into mewling infants, and I do not recommend that. But using words is a wonderful way to exercise our more beneficial intentions. It's very short. We're not doing it for 30 minutes. We're not doing it for 30 days. We're doing it for 30 seconds maybe. So we're going to use a bookend chant. Follow along with me if you feel comfortable. May all beings master the Tao of simplicity, patience, and compassion. May all beings master the Tao of simplicity, patience, and compassion. May all beings master the Tao of simplicity, patience, and compassion. Meditation and mindfulness meditation are known by many names such as Zen, Proto-Zen, Chandhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati-yoga, Dzogchen, and Trekchen. Despite the fanciness and exotic nature of these names, The techniques are ridiculously easy. Let's begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. Now, these diagrams are more art than they are science. They're not 100% accurate, so don't get too hung up with these drawings. Every time we access our sympathetic nervous system in harmony with our inhalation, we're wired not to actively concentrate, but instead to perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Now, this is best illustrated with the 12 syllables of inhalation, wherein one might silently and mentally recite, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. Lazy-minded fools and malicious folk alike love telling us that we have a monkey mind and it stands between us and enlightenment. No, it doesn't. It is part of us. It evolved to protect us. It is a wonderful tool. Please make the most of it. What are some of the antics of mind? Well, mind, through its sensory organs, is able to perceive appearance. Oh, thank you, James. Resonance, sensation, flavor, and fragrance. Mind is also able to perceive internally its emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, as well as imagination. You've noticed I've selected labels that are chiefly 3 syllables long. Chiefly because sometimes I have to, finagle. It works. It kind of works well, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So we have all these things going on. We have at least 10 pathways of perception, which can seem maddening at times. I don't know if you're an OG like myself, but way back in the early 80s, at the birth of New Wave, post-punk New Wave, a group, I think it was TLC, saying senses working overtime, trying to taste the difference between a lemon and a lime. Remember that song? It can seem overwhelming. So this begs the question, what are we to do with that which we notice? And the answer in one word is meditation. And here's how it works. Every time we exhale, we automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced again in the spinal cord, but this time in both the lumbar region as well as the cervical region. It is wired to help us do 2 things, to help us physically relax as well as mentally release, as is explored in Exhalation's 12-syllable recitation of relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Please don't make the boneheaded mistake that I made many years ago of looking at words like non-graspable or MD or not self or birthless literally. That's a boo-boo. Don't make my boo-boo. Sidestep my boo-boo. Way back in 4th grade, and for some reason, once I began studying something new, I forgot this, but way back in 4th grade, we're supposed to learn about figures of speech. Not everything is literal. Some things are synonyms. Some things are similes. Some things are metaphors. Some things are hyperbolic. Hyperbolic, it sounds like something from sci-fi. Not the hyperbolic. And so what basically is, I'll break it down for you. Whenever we physically relax into our exhalation, whatever we notice during our previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, could feel as non-graspable as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, oddly is intangible to the hand. And there you go. Mystery solved. So we're going to start off with a 12-syllable exercise and then a 3-syllable exercise. And then when we reach cruising speed or cruising altitude, we're going to kick back with a 1-syllable exercise. So right now, together, as a team. Let us meditate as transformatively as General Leia Organa on Autumn Claws, under the guidance of her brother, Luke Skywalker. And now, if I was really coordinated, quick like Bunny, I would hit the timer. So right now I'm experiencing turmoil. About 5, 10, 15 minutes before class, I had a flashback to an incident of where a physician violated consent. And feeling some very strong emotions about it. My job is not to make the emotions go away. My job is not to argue with those emotions, rationalize those emotions, minimize those emotions, or indulge those emotions. My job is to vulnerably notice what's going on in the 3-pound supercomputer between my ears and to relax into the next exhalation. During the next inhalation, it may still be there, it may not. That's not my job to worry about that. Just notice and release and enjoy the adventure. I'm telling you this not to kvetch, not to complain, but to let you know this works regardless of how trivial the observation or how traumatic. I was not an individual raised in an ivory tower, recognized as a tulku, and surrounded by sycophants. I am a person who was born into a very damaged body, who has endured all kinds of struggles and challenges and nightmarish scenarios. And I approached Taoism and Buddhism and everything else I could get my filthy little paws on because I wanted something to help me to deal with all the gurk I'd endured, all the gurk within me, and my own internal Klingon. My own inner Sith Lord. I didn't want to be a villain. I did not want to be a victim. I wanted to be, forgive my alliteration, a victor. I wanted to be happy and healthy and well-adjusted. So I teach from the perspective of finding shit that works. There are people, consider, if you will, the phrase, I think it was coined by the dead Greek man named Aesop, but I might be mistaken. Consider the phrase, a wolf in sheep's clothing. For as long as there's been humans, there have been some who are wicked and who would exploit those around them for sex or money or power or prestige or malice. I was going somewhere with that and it just escaped me. I'll come back to it. Yes, those people love to disempower those under their influence because it makes them more hypersuggestible. And one of the favorite tools to disempower someone is saying, listen, you're feeling these negative emotions and these bad memories because you are impure. And until you purify yourself, you'll keep having this stuff. And that's inferring what I like to call the bird in a gilded cage scenario, where you can only be enlightened if you feel certain emotions. But that's not liberation. That's not freedom. Enlightenment is being able to process whatever befalls us, whether it's pleasurable or painful or internal or external or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque, to be able to process whatever befalls us. That is the freedom of enlightenment. Consider, if you will, Lao Tzu and the Buddha and the Christ. Despite their wisdom and despite their spiritual practice, they suffered tremendously. Lao Tzu had to leave court. The Buddha suffered multiple assassination attempts before he was finally poisoned. And of course, the Christ was tortured and crucified. So whether those people are merely archetypes or actual individuals of flesh, blood, and bone, they set an example that our misfortune or good fortune is not a spiritual barometer. One of the truly exceptional things about those three archetypes, those three luminaries, is that they were be able to experience what happened without lying to themselves about what's going on, without magical thinking. They'll be able to be honest about what was going on inside of them, their bodies and their minds, and work through it and process it. What if the Philosopher's Stone wasn't about turning literal lead into literal gold, but metaphoric lead into metaphoric gold? We will experience that in a greater detail as we transition from this 12-syllable exercise to its 3-syllable counterpart. As we inhale, notice this. As we exhale, relaxing. When we catch ourselves talking to ourselves, perhaps telling a story, perhaps rehearsing a conversation, we can replace the phrase notices with the 3-syllable word cognition. That does not make the thought go away, but it harnesses its energy to metaphorically turn the shaft and wheel and cogs and pulleys of the metaphoric enlightenment machine. We're feeling a strong emotion. If we want to, we can replace the inhalation label with the 3-syllable word emotion. Whoopsie, emotion. If you catch yourself imagining something or reimagining a memory, we can work with the word imagine. And now for what I find, well, let's see here. So James asked a very good question. Are Lao Tzu and Sun Tzu related? That's an excellent question. They come from the same country and speak a similar language, probably not the same dialect, but they're different individuals. Lao Tzu is more of a descriptor than an actual name. It means old teacher. So now we're going to play with the 1-syllable versions. This is what I call cruising altitude. As we inhale, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. And as we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite the 1-syllable verb ease. By the way, James, thank you for another great question. So shrinking 3-syllable labels down to 1-syllable requires some mental gymnastics. We're going to use the word form to depict physical sensation. We're going to use the word feel to depict emotional sensation. We're going to use the preposition then to describe recollection. We're going to use the verb dream to describe imagining or imagination. When we catch ourselves in imagination and we silently and mentally recite the word dream, we don't make the imagination stop, but we start harnessing its power. And that's where the real magic comes in, metaphorically speaking. And now, I think it could be great fun if together as a team we chanted a bit of the old Dao De Ching. We'll play with chapter 45. The most perfect seems imperfect and seems to never complete, and the most full seems empty and seems to never run dry. It is safe and even advantageous to first acknowledge your perceptions and then let go of them. Otherwise, we are forever their prisoners. The most correct seems crooked. The most skillful seems clumsy. We're supposed to chant. Let's try this again. The most correct seems crooked, the most skillful clumsy, and the most abundant lacking. In this, our interdependent universe, where everything affects everything and everything affects everything. Very good. Everything is affected by everything. There is no unbiased perception. Together, as movement subdues cold as still softens heat, those who realize clarity are still enabled to order the world. The source of the centered spontaneity which can make of our life a magical dance is our seated meditation, firm and solid. If you've just joined us, welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist, meditation or philosophy or application, simply type your question in the chat window, but please be sure to press the send button. I check for questions approximately once every 8 or 9 minutes. One might ask, if this is supposed to be the path of ease, why is it so difficult? Ease is relative. It is more difficult and more painful to suppress an emotion or indulge in emotion than it is to work through it. So to notice and release as best one can in harmony with one's inhalation and exhalation is relatively easy. It's easier than going through 12 years of psychoanalysis. It is easier than turning to self-medication. It is easier than all the above. Think of it this way. It could be argued that masturbation requires a bit of effort before the payoff. It could be argued that coitus requires a bit of effort before the payoff. It could be argued that trading sexual favors requires a bit of effort before the payoff. Yes, the process can be fun. The process can be delightful too, and hopefully it is. But everything requires effort. Getting out of bed requires effort. Sitting on the toilet, having a bowel movement requires effort. Preparing a meal and then doing the dishes afterwards requires effort. Hell, chewing requires effort. Especially if you cook as badly as me. So easy is not an absence of effort. Easy is a small word, only 2 syllables. But it doesn't mean an absence of effort. But relatively, it is much easier. It's much easier to practice the path, whether you call it Mahamudra, whether you call it Mahasandhi, whether you call it Ati Yoga, whether you call it Dzogchen, whether you call it Druk-Cho, whether you call it George or Sally. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's relatively easy. It's easier than collecting hundreds and thousands of bows and offerings and recitations and visualizations. Ugh. This is so much easier than that nonsense. And that nonsense doesn't make the shit go away. It just buries it alive. That's how you get a zombie. That's like a Archer. Do you want zombies? Because that's how you get zombies. Archer's one of my favorite psychopaths. Anywho, let's hit it. Remember, we don't get to choose how long something stays. It's like we're at a play and we're looking at the stage and the actors come on the stage, regurgitate the lines, and scamper off the stage. We're not the director. We're not the playwright. We're not the producer. We don't get to tell the actors how long to stay on the stage for. Similarly, a traumatic memory may come up, grotesque, disgusting, like something out of a, what's his face? Who gave us Cthulhu? Who was the author? Lovecraft. One moment you can have a Lovecraftian beastie eating the first row of patrons at the theater, and the next minute he's replaced by an Archer cartoon. We don't choose what happens with the brain. We're just going along for the ride. That is why, metaphorically, we say the path is the goal. We always meditate at least once a day, if not twice or thrice or 4 times a day. Just like we always breathe. You know, haven't I breathed enough? When can I stop breathing? Well, when you've had enough, Charlie, then you can stop breathing. You know, every day we breathe, every day we drink water, every day we urinate, every day we eat food. Usually, if things go according to plan, every day we poop. Once again, if things go according to plan. You know, one time, man and woman were getting marriage counseling, and the woman says tearfully to the therapist, "He hasn't told me he loves me in 20 years. To which the man responded, "I told her I loved her when we married, and I haven't taken it back since." Ah, the wisdom of boys, he said sarcastically. So, just because we tell someone we love them once doesn't mean we stop telling them that. Doesn't mean we stop drinking water. Doesn't mean we stop eating food. We do things daily, at least, often multiple times a day. That's how life works. It's like a dance. You don't dance on one foot and dance on the other foot and say, "Well, I'm done. I'm going to go back home now." You know, it's like what Neil Gaiman said. Anybody who accuses a Beatles song of having a verse repeating itself in the middle during the chorus, going back to the verse and only lasting 3 minutes, has missed the point of a Beatles. Many songs fit that same description. Doesn't mean they're all the same. And if you like a song, you probably want to listen to it more than once. Anyway. So when Zen Master Dogen says sitting is enlightenment, he's speaking metaphorically. When the founder of Dzogchen, Prahe Vajra, also known as Garab Dorje, says we're already enlightened. He's speaking metaphorically. We already have the capacity to notice. We already have the capacity of letting go. And it's super, super easy. We just get out of our own way and play in this amusement park called life. And now for a bit of the old chanting. When the Tao prevails in the world, racing horses return to fertilizing the fields. When the Tao fails in the world, war horses are bred on the borders. When all beings practice the Tao, spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively, sustainability is ubiquitous. However, when it is forsaken, hostilities and contentions abound. No curse is greater than having what you desire. No misfortune is greater than discontent. It could be a mistake to confuse the tumult of desire for the guidance of centered spontaneity. For dopamine is released more in the pursuit of goals than in their acquisition. Consequently, as Spock cautioned, there is often more pleasure in the wanting than in the having. It is illogical, yet true. No sorrow is greater than wanting more and more, and knowing when enough is lasting contentment indeed. When mere cleverness, take two, where mere cleverness may aid one's practices of indulgence or asceticism, actual wisdom guides us towards the happy medium, creating sustainability, both physical and emotional. Ask a historian about the Pax Romana, and they will tell you that it is an analog of peace. In the Roman Empire, there ceased to be wars amongst the states because they knew if there were hostilities, the Roman legions would come down and just kill everybody. So when the Roman Empire fell, their analog of peace went away, and everybody just attacked everybody else. It was an orgy of violence. Same thing happened after the fall of the Soviet Union. All their little territories started bickering amongst themselves and separating and whatnot. Similarly, we might strive to practice active concentration. We might strive to stop our thoughts moving about. That is an analog of peace, and it creates far more harm than good. I have never met a truly wise or peaceful person who practices concentration, but the relatively easy, relatively simple act of noticing as we breathe in, relaxing as best we can as we breathe out, makes people so much happier, so much more loving, so much more peaceful, so much more resourceful, so much more resilient. How ironic that something that much easier can be that much better. together. We need to step out the door to know the whole world. No need to look out the window to know the Tao of heaven. The farther you go, the less you know. Thus the wise know without going, name without looking, in the tin without doing. The greatest insights come not from contrivance, but rather from centered spontaneity. If you've just joined us, welcome aboard. If you want the lesson and the explanations, just drag the indicator bar all the way to the left. If, however, you just want to sit and meditate, that's fine. Welcome aboard. As we are inhaling, we are perceiving, while silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this. As we are exhaling, we are relaxing, as silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb ease. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist meditation or philosophy or practice, simply type your question in the chat window. To seek knowledge is to gain every day. Consider the verb seek. Bodhidharma cautioned that seeking increases suffering. To hear the Tao is to lose day after day. To lose until one is empty of doing. Upon the way, we do not actively forsake knowledge, but passively release our thirst for knowledge and hunger for control. We release action controlling and contrived, that we might flow instead from centered spontaneity. Wei means nothing not done. Forsaking both control and scatteredness. Set space for the middle ground of centered spontaneity, the ultimate efficiency. To control the world is to be empty of doing. Those who are busy doing cannot control the world. Contrivance can only generate but an analog of productivity. Three-minute warning. Let us seal the practice with a bit of the old chanting. May all beings master the Tao of simplicity, patience, and compassion. May all beings master the Tao of simplicity, patience, and compassion. May all beings master the Tao of simplicity, patience, and compassion. If you feel that I have earned it, you can give this live stream a thumbs up. You can even help support this channel if you wish. In approximately 10 and 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's morning meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.